Hey everyone, and welcome to What Did I Miss?, where today I'll be breaking down the 4th episode of the final season of Star Trek Picard, titled No-Win Scenario, and looking for every Easter egg that I can find. The title of the episode is based on the infamous training scenario at Starfleet Academy named the Kobayashi Maru, that is designed to put cadets in a certain death situation to see how they react under extreme stress. James T. Kirk was at least at one point the only cadet ever to beat the Kobayashi Maru test, which he did by cheating it, because in his words,
I don't like to lose.
At the time, he did not believe in the no-win scenario, but it still was a lesson he was forced to learn in the film The Wrath of Khan. The 2009 Star Trek film, directed by J.J. Abrams, showed a young James Kirk beating the Kobayashi Maru at Starfleet Academy and also revealed that Spock is the individual responsible for creating the test.
How the hell did that kid beat your test?
I do not know.
This is the second episode of Picard in a row that is directed by Jonathan Frakes, who pulls double duty by also starring as Captain Will Riker this season. This is the last of 6 episodes that he will have directed for the series over its 3 seasons, and I sincerely hope that Mr. Frakes is allowed to continue to work on other Star Trek projects in the future. And given his history with the franchise over the past 30 years, there's a good chance that he will show up in anything Star Trek does, since no one has appeared in more films and series than Jonathan Frakes. While it is true that Michael Dorn does have the record for most individual appearances by an actor on Star Trek, with 272 total at this point, Jonathan Frakes has appeared on more total Star Trek series and films than any other, including Mr. Dorn. Having appeared in 4 films, as well as The Next Generation of course, along with appearing on Deep Space Nine as his clone Thomas Riker, on Voyager thanks to a cutaway scene created by Q, on Enterprise as a major character during the show's finale, 3 episodes of the animated series Lower Decks, and now Star Trek Picard. By comparison, Mr. Dorn did not appear on Voyager or Enterprise, and at this point has not yet appeared on Lower Decks. This episode starts with a scene that occurred 5 years before the events of this episode. This is the 3rd episode in a row to have a flashback scene, and the 2nd to occur at 10 Forward Avenue, a bar that is owned by Guinan, a reoccurring character on The Next Generation, and one who appeared last season on Picard. The bar scene in the 3rd episode this season took place in 2381, after the birth of Riker and Troy's son Thaddeus, and this scene takes place in 2396, which would mean that this flashback occurs during the same year that Thaddeus Riker died. It is tragically ironic that given that we see later that Jack was here in this bar at this time, that it seems that Riker lost his son the same year that Picard also had a chance to have a relationship with his son, but lost it as well. While Picard is sitting down trying to enjoy his fish and chips, he is come upon by a group of Starfleet cadets who want to know about his experience with an alien race known as the Herogen. This would be a story that I'd like to hear as well, because first of all, we never saw an incident with Picard and the Herogen since the Predator-like species only appeared on the series Star Trek Voyager, which occurred thousands of light years away in the Delta Quadrant. The cadets actually reference both of these facts.
Did you ever find out how they got to the quadrant?
Did Admiral Janeway offer any advice?
Picard tells the cadets that Lieutenant Commander Worf had created a deadfall trap to save Picard and crew. This is the same type of trap used by the cast of Family Guy to catch one of their most ruthless villains, James Woods.
Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy.
After the intro, Seven goes on the hunt for the Changeling and starts in Ensign Foster's quarters. On his desk is the Vulcan strategy game Calto that Tuvok played on the series Star Trek Voyager. In that game, the final shape is formed by correctly placing many smaller shapes together that create this one new shape, which could be seen as a metaphor for the Great Link and how changelings lose themselves in the link. If you are curious at all about the Changelings or want a refresher on their history, I put out a video this past week about them that I'm really proud of that you should definitely check out. I've left a link to it on this video and in the description for you to check out after this video. During this time of peril, Picard and Sun find time to fire up the holodeck and have a drink. Not the best vehicle for this scene, I agree, and I should also point out that Jack, by admitting to being 23 or 24, puts his birth before the events of Star Trek Nemesis. So maybe there is still something to Jack that we do not know, but if he is at least 23, then that means that he was alive during the events of the film Nemesis. Jack tells Picard about a story on the planet Metalis 4, and Metalis Prime is the planet that Raffi and Worf are currently, characters that are both notably absent from this episode. Both of these planets are named after Picard's showrunner, Terry Matalas. Seven tells Captain Shaw that there's a changeling on board and that she needs his help to find them. She also mentions that she has never encountered a changeling before, which kind of makes sense, since the USS Voyager was in the Delta Quadrant during the entirety of the Dominion War. If Seven is still not aware of the characteristics of a changeling, this probably means that they are one of the few alien species in the universe that the Borg cannot assimilate. Captain Shaw explains to Seven that changelings need to revert to their natural state every so often and to search for their pot.
What are you people? On dope?
When he gives Seven the pad that explains this, a picture of the bucket that the changeling Odo used on Deep Space Nine is shown, along with a picture of Renee Auberjonois as the character. Next we see Vadic on the Shrike communicate with someone or something by cutting off her wrist. This would seem to confirm that she is also a changeling, and that by removing a part of herself, she is able to communicate with other changelings that are in the Great Link. However, the changeling that Worf and Raffi were able to capture stated that he was part of a splinter group, so this could mean that both of these changelings, along with others, are part of another link. There was a changeling named Laz, who like Odo was sent off into the universe by the Founders and eventually found his way to DS9. He had an animosity towards humanoid beings that was very much like the Founders, but did not wish to return to the Great Link and instead wanted to find other changelings so that he could create his own Great Link. Laz appeared in the DS9 episode Chimera and was played by frequent Star Trek contributor J.G. Hertzler. One aspect of the changelings is that they do not harm each other, and Vadic does seem very afraid of this being who openly threatens her, so it's possible this being is not a changeling as well. But let me know in the comments if you have any theories on who the real big bad is this season. Vadic is forced to disengage and jettison the portal technology in order to pursue the Titan. When she does this, you can briefly see the Daystrom Institute branding on the technology, confirming that this is what Worf and Raffi are searching for. We return to 10 Forward Avenue, and Picard is still telling stories to cadets. However, in the story he is telling, he seems to mispronounce the name of the alien species involved.
Then I realized that the Temerians' language was based on metaphor.
The event that he is talking about took place in the Next Generation episode Darmok and involved aliens from the species known as Temerian, or the Children of Tama. The Telarians appeared in the TNG episode titled Suddenly Human and do not speak in metaphor. Jack and Picard are still talking in 10 Forward when Captain Shaw walks in. He reveals why he has such a disdain for Picard and Seven by proxy, which is that he suffered at the hands of the Borg at the Battle of Wolf 359. This has proven to be one of the most pivotal events in the history of the Federation, as not only was it their first real engagement with the cybernetic species that resulted in a tremendous loss of life, but it also resulted in then Captain Picard being abducted by the Borg and used to help decimate the Federation forces there. These events were told in the infamous two-part cliffhanger Next Generation episode, The Best of Both Worlds, but Picard has shown on multiple occasions that he is still affected by this event.
They took everything I was. They used me to kill. I shouldn't have been able to stop them. I tried. I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't good enough.
Captain Shaw is also not the first Starfleet officer to have faced Picard in battle at Wolf 359, as Benjamin Sisko was on another vessel that was destroyed during the fight, where he lost his wife and the mother to his child. During his story, Captain Shaw refers to himself as a grease monkey. This is a term that has been used by characters on Star Trek before, like Tom Paris on Voyager and Jet Reno on Discovery, but this could actually be a small nod to the actor who plays Captain Shaw, Todd Stashwick, who also appeared on the show 12 Monkeys, a series created by Picard's showrunner, Terry Matalas. Captain Shaw is suffering not only from post-traumatic stress disorder and survivor's guilt, but also from being a dipshit from Chicago. As a fellow dipshit from Chicago, I can say that this character is quickly becoming one of my favorites in this new era of Star Trek. Not to mention that the actor who plays Captain Shaw, Todd Stashwick, is also from Chicago.
We're on a mission from God.
Dr. Crusher, Picard, and Jack deduce that the power surges in the nebula can be tracked, and they want to try to use the wave to power the ship and exit the nebula. Since they know when the waves are going to hit, they create a plan to channel the energy directly through the nacelles into the warp core. This whole situation really reminded me of Doc Brown and Marty McFly's plan in the original Back to the Future film, when they used the energy from a lightning strike to power their time machine back to the future. Let's not forget that the actor that played Doc Brown, Christopher Lloyd, also played the evil Klingon Krug in the third Star Trek film, The Search for Spock. While Dr. Crusher is explaining the theory to Captain Riker, Picard brings up
Farpoint.
Exactly.
This is a reference to the very first adventure that Picard, Dr. Crusher, Riker, and the rest of the crew of the Enterprise D went through together in the pilot episode of The Next Generation, Encounter at Farpoint, when they made first contact with a new form of life that resembled a large jellyfish in space. I also love how Picard just shouts out the reference while Dr. Crusher is talking, which is something I do in my real life whenever I hear someone make a reference to Star Trek.
What is that?
Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan!
They all discuss the plan and how it will be hard to manually navigate the ship through the wave. I know that this did not end up happening in this episode, but I can't be the only one that thought we were going to see the return of Riker and the joystick before this episode was over. An infamous scene that occurred in the film Star Trek Insurrection, which, like this episode, was also directed by Jonathan Frakes. The crew prepare for the final wave and even get a feel-good moment from Picard saying his infamous catchphrase.
Engage.
The unlikely duo of Captain Shaw and Seven are sent to remove the cover from the warp nacelles so that they can accept the power surge. While they are doing this, the Changeling comes in disguised as Sidney LaForge, and Seven is able to determine that she is not who she appears to be and shoots her dead, after LaForge calls Seven by her former name. This scene reminded me of one of the funniest scenes in another franchise starring Patrick Stewart, The X-Men.
It's me. Prove it. You're a dick. Okay.
The Titan is able to make it out of the nebula, but the Shrike is waiting for them when they do. They are able to evade the Shrike though, thanks to some pretty quick thinking by Captain Riker, who uses the ship's tractor beam to throw an asteroid at the other ship, disabling it. This is rather poetic justice, since earlier in the season in the episode Disengage, the Shrike used its tractor beam to throw the Helios at the Titan. The episode ends with the crew witnessing the birth of hundreds of beings that may be younger versions of the entity from the pilot episode of The Next Generation, Encounter at Farpoint. We also see the end of the flashback scene in which Jack, posing as someone else, asks Picard if he wanted a family. I definitely have thoughts about this, along with Jack's vision at the very end and the rest of the episode. So if you would like to hear my review and some of my theories, check out my podcast WDIM News, which I release each Monday. Well, that was everything I saw, but let me know in the comments if I missed anything. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please hit that like button to help support the work that I put into these videos, and I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?